Hello, everybody. This is Rodney Kelm, the Fatherpreneur, coming at you with another episode of Purpose-Driven Content and Purpose-Driven Marketing. And I have a very special guest tonight I have a privilege of really having another wonderful guest. He has his own father's show. He creates wonderful and great content for men out there. He helps men get through really tough situations, as is my goal with this show. So without further ado, I want to introduce my guest for tonight, Mr. Mike Thompson. Welcome to the show, Mr. Thompson.
Hey, well, thank you. How are you?
Doing well. So just give yourself another introduction so people can really get to know who you are.
Well, I'm Mike Thompson, as you mentioned, and I do have a radio show called The Father Show, and with that, in a nutshell, that's a Oprah show for men. So this is where men can find resources and listen to the show and learn different things. Pretty much the same thing that you're doing here. And we also have the Father Show Resource Program, which is a web-based organization that provides resources to help fathers be better men, better husbands, better fathers. And not to say that they're not already, but hopefully they are trying to grow and be even better than what they already are. So that's the main two things that I get into. And so there's more, but we can talk about that later.
Well, hopefully we can get it all squoze in, if that's even a word, squoze, tonight's show. So the way I like to do this, I love to just let people hear your story. We talked briefly yesterday, so I know a little bit about your story, but just tell everybody a little bit about where you're from, how you grew up, and then we'll continue from there.
All right. Well, I am originally from Houston, Texas. Both side of my family grew up in Houston, and so did I, off and on. My dad was in the military, so we did travel quite a bit. But as much as I possibly could, I went back to Houston in the summertime after school was out and spent my summers in Houston. So I had a great time there, and had both my mom and dad all my life. Well, up until I was 11. Unfortunately, my dad died when I was 11 years old from fighting the war. And so we moved to Colorado, my mother and I, my sister, and we settled here in Denver, Colorado. And I've been here off and on ever since, other than going to college and, traveling and doing music and things of that nature. But Colorado's been my second home.
So a Denverite. Are you in Denver or another city? Denver, okay.
No, I'm in Denver.
So
still in Denver.
You are in Denver, the Mile High City.
Mile High.
So I like to progress in your story because we know what's funny is we talked about this yesterday because it seems to be a storyline with my guests where there's always something traumatic in their childhood. You are surprisingly, which is sadly to say that it's surprising, that nothing traumatic happened in your childhood except for the loss of your father. No craziness going on in your younger years. You had a very good upbringing. And so what's very interesting about your story is what comes later in adulthood. And I know this is something that you focus on with your content and the things you do on your show. So tell us, I want you to really help us to look inside your brain before a major wedding event happened in your life. Well, what was your life like? What was it like when you first met this person? And then we'll sort of let the story evolve from there.
Well, I was in music for quite some time from the age of, I think I started playing in bands at the age of 15 and stayed in music until my late 20s when I was given the opportunity to come into a liquor store and, be part owner in that, and did that for a while and settled down. And in my 30s, actually, when I was 32, my daughter was born, my first child, and stayed married to her mom for about 5 years, but got divorced and ended up getting remarried a few years later to another young lady that gave birth to my son. And so I had a great time, got divorced on that one as well. But it was a little hard on the kids, but I ended up becoming a single dad for 11 years and really enjoyed raising my kids on my own. I did have to fight for my daughter. Unfortunately, she didn't have a great upbringing once I left the house and had some issues with her mother. And so it took me about 6 years to finally get custody of her. And that was a long struggle because I knew some things weren't going as they should be. I knew she wasn't being raised the way that she should be and treated the way that she should be. But I wouldn't give up. I just kept going and fighting for her. And, it was just a moment in time where something happened and I was able to get custody of her, of my daughter. And, it was hard because as a father, you want to do the best for your kids and provide for them. And to have your daughter come visit you on the weekends and tell me stories about what was going on in the home and, begging me to get her out of there and not getting much help from the system. Actually, the first time I called in, my daughter was about 6 years old, and I called into social service and said, I know my daughter's being mentally and physically abused, and social service told me, quote unquote, that they had bigger fish to fry. However, I was supposed to keep on reporting any incidents because if something major happens, if I have not reported these incidents, I won't get the child either. So very frustrating, very hard and very frustrating.
What's amazing is as you're telling me this story, the older I get, the more I hear stories of men having to do this, and you rarely ever hear about men winning custody battles or even taking the time to go to court. But what I want to do real quick is I want to rewind a little bit, so other men out there that may be thinking about marriage or in a relationship that may be not fruitful, to understand your mindset at that time, what you went through in 2 divorces, what maybe you could have done differently personally, things to look out for. So take us back to the time before you get married the first time or have your first child. Can you tell us more about how you were, what you were thinking, what led to your first marriage, and were you really ready?
Well, I was ready, but I always wanted kids. I just be honest, I never really wanted to get married. However, when she became pregnant, due to my upbringing, I decided that the best thing to do was to get married and make the best out of the marriage. But after about 5 years being in it, I realized that it really wasn't going to work. So it was better that I leave and, support her as much as I could, and which I tried to do. But however, she decided to go off on the deep end and caused me a lot of headaches, um, really made my life miserable, made my daughter's life miserable. And it was just really trying to get back at me for leaving. And I understood it, but it was totally unnecessary. And I still see my daughter's 25 today, and I still see the effects that it had on her today.
Wow.
So,
You
yeah.
know, these are things that I know a lot of men out there are going through and feel like they can't talk about it. So I appreciate you telling your story. So you have your first daughter, you have your first marriage, which ended, and I really want men to listen to you because there's a hefty price to pay for the choices we make, right or wrong. It doesn't matter the intentions behind it. These are the things that a mature person may have to go through. And so
Absolutely.
after you've had this first experience, and sadly, your daughter was going through the things which divorce is always hard on children, what led you into the second relationship that turned into a marriage?
Well, the second one was very truthfully, I just fell in love. That met a young lady that was beautiful on the outside, and I thought was beautiful on the inside. And her and I just got together and we clicked and we had a great time. And it was for me, it was love, and that's why I got married to her. However, one of the things that I tell men is you really have to get to know the person that you're falling in love with. I mean, love is great and it is easy to fall into, but you have to give yourself time to learn that person and who that person really is. And that's male and female. You know, it's one of those things where people can hide who they really are until, you know, for a certain amount of time. I found out something about her that, you know, was I didn't know. Other people knew about it, but they felt that I wasn't going to listen, even if they did tell me. However, I have told them that I wish they had to let me know so I can go in with my eyes open instead of totally blind and finding out these things after the fact. So, you know, it's really one of the things that men and women, for that matter, need to take their time, spend time with that person, get to know that person before you jump into getting married.
You know, I've been married for 9 years. It'll be 10 years this coming next July. And, you know, you're absolutely right. My wife and I were together for 2006 years before we got married. And at that, by that time, we knew each other, you know, the good, the bad. And so your
Right.
advice rings, your advice is exactly true in my opinion. You know,
Yeah.
what I've learned about marriage is that if you look at marriage like you would going for a job, there's the work and then there's the
Mm.
benefits.
Yeah.
Marriage is the work. The love and all the romance is a benefit. It is
Yeah.
not a requirement. It's not. It's something that's promised. So, you know, I love the advice that you're giving. And so, as we move on to this segment, I mean, I know you said it ended. I'm guessing, based on what you said before, that it didn't end with a custody battle like before, did it?
No, it didn't. We were very going for this divorce together. We didn't fight about it. We actually went in and saw a mediator, wrote up the paperwork, agreed to all the terms, and we said we would have, you know, my son 50% of the time each. Nobody was going to pay child support, no matter what the court says, because we would share custody of them. So it was really an amicable divorce, one that I would love to see more people do. You know, it wasn't about the anger. We realized, hey, this is not going to work. Uh, and so let's just go on with our lives. And we still did things with my son on a regular basis. His birthday, we would do his birthday together. We would take him on trips together when he needed something, you know, for a birthday or for school or things of that nature. We sometimes did that together. So we didn't have any animosity among each other, even though it could have been that way. But we chose not to. And it really benefited my son quite a bit that he didn't have a mother and a father fighting and arguing all the time and talking about one another by, you know, behind the other's back. He never heard any of that. So it was the way I think a divorce should be if you have to do it.
Throughout, from marriage one to marriage two with your daughter and now your son, how is their relationship growing up, knowing that there was a bit of turmoil in your daughter's home life before she came to be with you, and a little bit different with your son and the new relationship? What was their relationship like as children, and how is it now?
Actually, they got along pretty well for the most part. You know, they had their sibling rivalries and, you know, they had their siblings arguments and things of that nature. But all in all, they got along pretty well, and they still do today. My daughter is doing the things that she needs to do to get her life together, and my son is doing fabulous. I'm very proud of him. I'm very proud of both of them. But he is, you know, turned 18 and got a place of his own, and he is getting ready to go to college, be an engineer. So, you know, I'm really proud of him because he's doing it. And my daughter is she's trying to get her stuff together, and I'm proud of her for doing the things that she's doing to get her life in order.
I want to delve into the whole custody battle thing one more time because I did a study and some surveys, and I wrote a great blog post about the the child support system and how it's really not fair on any case. And you said something about when you first reported what you believe or felt was abuse, how they really just brush you off. And I actually have a very close friend who's been through and is going through a situation like yours where he has to fight and fight for his daughter. Can you tell us at that moment when you had the report and they brushed you off, what was that like and what was your course of action?
You know, that was, it really ticked me off, just plain and simple. I was very upset. Uh, I couldn't believe that, you know, they were just going to blow it off. And I told them right up front, I said, look, I'm not asking you to get into a custody battle or anything like that. I'm just asking you to give her mother some help so that this stuff will stop. And they just, nope. And anytime I called and asked them to say go to the school and talk to my daughter on her own, they wouldn't do it. They will always call her mom and set up an appointment with her and my daughter to sit down and talk about whatever were going on. And it really irritated me to know that fathers were not valued and their point of view not valued. They looked at us as if, you know, we had an agenda other than protecting our child. And that was very irritating and very frustrating. And I went through, my best friend went through the same thing with his daughter. And that's, you know, we actually were fighting for our daughters at the same time. And he ended up winning custody of his daughter as well. And it took us each, I think, me about 6 years and him about 7. But he ended up winning custody of his daughter as well. And some of the things that he went through was really unfair in the, you know, in the eyes of anybody that is fighting for the child. But the court system really was not listening to him, didn't care, and thought all the stuff that he was bringing up was just BS. And I mean, he even had taped conversations that him and the mother had, and you can see who was being the abusive person in that conversation, and the court system didn't care.
You know, this is a very sadly a common story for men that have the courage to go through the system. Can you take us into a few moments when you were in the court? Do you have a lot of, I'm guessing this was probably through a family court. I mean, I've never been through it, but I've heard. I'm guessing this is like a family court. Did you have mainly female judges? And if so, you know, what were some of their reactions to your claims?
No, you know, sadly enough, I had male judges, and they still were, in some cases, on the female side. But I have to give the judge, when I got custody of my daughter, I really have to give him some credit because the mom came in portraying that she really didn't understand why she was there. And the judge was going to dismiss the case because he didn't think that she understood what was going on. And to me, that was a game that she was playing. And I have to say, you know, when he said, well, I'm gonna have to dismiss it because this lady doesn't even understand why she's here, you know, I just have to look. I said a quick prayer and I said, Lord, you can't let this happen, you know, like this. And just at that moment, the judge leaned back in his chair, thought about it, and then he leaned up and he said, okay, let me explain this to you. And he explained the whole process to the mom. And after that, it was a done deal. You know, he said he would give a no, he gave a guardian ad litem. He assigned a guardian ad litem to the case and said that whatever the guardian ad litem came back with, that's what he was going to go by. And somehow, and for some reason, and I still to this day don't understand why, when the guardian ad litem went to the mother's house, she confessed it to everything. And I really was dumbfounded by the fact that she told the truth about what was going on, what has been happening, and so forth. And so when the garden ad litem came to my house, she said, done deal. Don't have to worry about it. You got her. And he said she confessed to everything. And that's really how it came to be.
So this was the 6 years of going through this process. And I'm guessing, so if you said your daughter was 6, she's about 12 years old when this happened?
Right.
And just clarify what garden ad litem, I'm guessing that's a court-appointed something or other, correct?
Yeah, it's a court-appointed attorney for the child.
Gotcha.
And that attorney is working in the best interest of the child. So she will go out and get the facts and then bring it back, write a report, bring it back to the court.
So now your daughter is 12 years old. You gain, I'm guessing, full custody, main custody of your daughter.
Mm-hmm.
She comes to your home after going through all that she's gone through, have to go through this custody battle, already have been through a divorce. You already talked about that she's sort of still working through some things. What were some of the biggest challenges you had to help her through when she first came to your home?
Well, the biggest challenges were getting her to understand that she's a child now, where when her mother's home, she was the adult and she kind of ruled the nest. So when she came to live with me, she had to learn that she was the child, not the adult. And excuse me, it wasn't a hard transition for the most part because she already knew me. It wasn't like coming to dad's house was something new. Coming to dad's house was something, she had never done before. She was there. I had my visitations. So she had spent some time with me. So she knew me. But I took her immediately, I took her into counseling and made sure that she was able to talk through the issues and the things that she had gone through.
Wow. And I love your story. Well, at least, the outcome, because not often enough do we hear about fathers who deserve, custody of the children, getting custody of the children because of the bias that is in the court system that I've heard over and over from males and females. They both attest to what you're saying, especially with judges and especially female judges always seem to have this bias against men, no matter what the facts are. So I'm so glad that you were able to get your daughter, help right away. This is sort of the silver lining to some of the hardship she may have gone through. And as she has gotten older, because she's older than your son, and as she transitioned through, do you see still some residuals from those experiences, like behaviors and things that she sort of still hasn't broken from?
Absolutely. Sad but true. I do still see some residual effects that she is dealing with. And matter of fact, she called me last night to let me know that she was back into counseling. And I was so glad to hear that because I know she still has some ongoing issues that she needs to deal with. And also learning how to really have a good relationship with her mother. And that's I'm hoping for in the long run. Don't know if it'll happen, but I'm really hoping that her and her mom really learn how to have a good relationship. And so I was happy to hear that.
So now we can transition to another part of your story where this is something that you do on a regular basis. And so after you've gone through these relationships, these divorces, custody battle, how did you transition into becoming, having your own radio show and putting together resources? What was the moment that fueled you to say, I'm doing this?
Well, I'd be always honest about this. This is one thing that the Father Show Resource Program was not my idea. It was something that God put on my heart to do and flat out told me, this is what I want you to do. So I did it. I didn't know anything about running a nonprofit organization. I didn't know anything about father's needs, other than what I've gone through and what my best friend had gone through. And I also had some other friends that had gone through a divorce. And one of the things that they always said was they didn't know where they could go to get help, someone that they could talk to. So when God asked me to do that, I did it. And then that's how the show came about. I was asked to do a radio show about 4 years ago. And, and I said, well, I have a resource program about for fathers. So let's do the father show. And, we can talk about these issues. We can have attorneys on the show that can help guide men through the process that they may be going through. We can, we've talked with fathers and daughters and sons. And, one show I really remember I had two young men on my show. They were both 16-year-old teenage boys. And one grew up without knowing his father, and the other grew up without really having a good relationship with his mother. And really get them to understand, the audience to understand, that both parents are important to the child. I don't never want to take my daughter from her mom, and I didn't never want her be away from me, because no matter what, the kids need both parents, because there are certain things that you as a father can teach your child that your wife cannot. And there's certain things that your wife can teach a child that you as a father cannot. So they need both parents so they can really grow up and have all the support that they need.
Tell us about the journey, because I'm guessing you had, you were in music and you said co-owner in a liquor store. What's the transition like? God tells you to do this thing, then all of a sudden it's done. Like, what were the steps you took to put together these resources? Who did you reach out to, if anybody? I'm really trying to paint the picture for somebody who may be going down the same path as you on what steps it takes to get to your point.
Yeah, well, to learn about a nonprofit organization, I just went to the library and started studying up what it takes to have a nonprofit organization. What is the IRS rules and regulations? And so I wrote up my mission statement, my vision statement, and started writing up my bylaws and things of that nature. And then I took it to an attorney that knows about nonprofits, and just made sure, my ducks were in a row. And one thing I can, it was funny, but the attorney said, well, these things can take, a year or so to get approved. And mine was approved in about 3 months. So it was another confirmation for me that this is what God wanted me to be doing. So since then, I have just been growing and growing the organization. I had to put a board together and, doing some marketing and things of that nature. So running like a business, but it's been a challenge, and it's also been a love, because I've really enjoyed doing it, and I love providing the resources so men don't have to go through what I've gone through and what my friends have gone through and what other men have gone through. At least if they do, they have some resources. They know where to reach out to find those resources. So I'm very happy to be doing what I'm doing, and I'm looking forward to making it grow even more so.
Tell us a little bit more about, what are these resources that you provide? And like, do you work with groups of men? Do you work one-on-one with men? Do you speak to groups? Let us know what the work is that you do.
Well, the resources that we have on there are, we have attorneys, we have counselors, we have mediators, we have therapists, we have childcare. We will soon have, food and, clothing, where men can go if they're struggling, to feed their family. They can go out and they know where they can get food. We're looking at housing. We're looking at whatever men need on a day-to-day to support themselves and their families. One of the things that I do is not just a father show, we talk about the things on there, but I also do speaking into groups and to organizations about fatherhood and parenting. And so I love talking to women, because I like women to understand the importance of a father. Fathers have been pushed back in society and made to feel like they're not important, and they really are. I mean, when you got 63% of kids that are committing suicide coming from a fatherless home, and then 90% of kids that are runaway and homeless coming from fatherless home, that got to tell you something. That should tell you just how important the father is. And I've heard many women say that, oh, I can raise this child on my own. And yes, they can. But is that in the best interest of the child? And that's what I want more fathers and mothers and the court system to understand and look at what is in the best interest of the child. And that's what should be important.
You touched on so many important things right there, and I'm over here giving you amens while I had the screen up, but you're absolutely right, and I'm thankful that my wife and I get to work together and to raise our children, and I remember my mother raising my brother and I, all the struggles that she had. I look at the single parents in my life that I know and the struggles that they go through. And you remember, back in the 90s when the I don't need a man really started becoming popular, and I can do it by myself. And now,
Yeah.
20 years later, we're looking at the results, which you just talked about, the statistics about suicide, about runaways. And we have to really stop dismissing the importance of both parental roles. If there's a reason why God used two people to make a person, it must be a reason why it takes two people to raise a person. So I completely agree. And I applaud you, because the things that you talked about, the resources that you have, you're really doing a great job of trying to cover things from top to bottom. And so could you please tell us, are the resources only available to people in your area, or how far does your help reach?
Well, we provide resources in all 50 states. And what we do is go out and look for organizations that are doing male programs and attorneys that maybe focus on the father's rights. And we try to find as much information around the United States that we can and provide a list. So really all a man has to do, say his child needs counseling, and he wants to make sure he gets the child counseling. All he has to do is go to the Father Show Resource Program website, click on his state, look up counseling, and find a counselor that's closest to you, make the phone call, set up an appointment, and take care of your business. We don't even know you were there. We don't want to know you were there. We're just making sure that you have one central place where you can find resources that can help you be a better father and be a better husband or boyfriend and just a man in general.
So I just put the website up. Tell me if that's the correct website that people can go to.
That is correct. That's perfect. Thank you.
Thefathersshow.org. And that's something I'm going to check out, because I know a few people that could really benefit from it right now.
Yeah, let me add something. Just put after the show, put RP as a resources program.
RP. So let's get that for
RP.
you.
Yeah, the Father Show, RP.org.
RP.org. Let's see. Let's put that back up.
There we go. That's perfect.
Father Show RP. So I want the viewers out there, especially the men out there, to know that there is a resource. Mm-hmm. And really, when I began the fatherpreneurship, my journey, I thought I was the only person out there trying to do things focused on men. I really did, because it's hard to really find. You go online and you find a ton of resources for women and mothers. You find very few things for men and fathers. And so I'm glad that there's some people out there like you and a few other men that I've had the blessing of connecting with, to provide things for men, because it's like the world says, either you got it together or forget you. And so it's really encouraging, and I'm glad that you took the time out to come tell your story, that there are resources. So if you are a father or know a father out there that needs some help, whatever it is, have them go to this website, thefathersshow.org, and help them, allow them to find some resources in their area, because men need help. Even though we may not talk about it, share this interview, share this blog on Twitter, Facebook, Google Plus, to help spread the word that there is help for men out there. And so, Mike, what I want you to do is, if there's a special message that you like to leave viewers with, like when you do speeches and you talk to groups, if there's one message that you really want to get across to the people out there, go ahead and share that right now.
Well, you kind of touched on it earlier. You said it takes two to make them and it takes two to raise them. That is really one of my closing lines. that I use. But the bottom line, what I want men and women to understand, that they have a place, an important place in their child's life. So men, if you are out there and you don't think you're important, you are. If you're out there and you need to get your life together so you can be a part of your child's life, do that. Get your stuff together so you can be a part of your child's life, and do whatever it takes legally for you to be a part of your child's life. I've had many men talk to me about, I haven't been in part of my child's life because they were pushed away, kept out, or the child was taken away, and they missed their kids. But so mothers, understand, we know you can raise the child on your own, but you're doing a child a disservice when you're not giving them what they really want. And all mothers, you say you love your child unconditionally. I want you to really do love them unconditionally. I want you to unconditionally let their father be a part of their life if he is not a threat to them. If there's no reason in the world that he should not be a part of their life, don't keep him away. Don't make it hard for him. Get in there, let him be a part of the child's life. And I'm not sure how much time we got, but I just had a young man on my show about 3 weeks ago, and him and his father and his mother actually got divorced when he was 1 year old, and he's 22 now, and they have raised him together for all those 22 years. And I really applaud them for working through their own issues among himself, having their own life, but still coming together for the sake of their child. And he's a great young man.
Mr. Thompson, I truly appreciate you taking the time out to come and tell your story, to share your life, your experiences, and your resources with my viewers. Again, I implore everybody who's watching this to share this on social media, whatever your social media platform is. Tell somebody about a link, send them a Facebook message. And as I always close, I say thank you to Mr. Thompson one more time. I want to say thank you to every viewer, every person watching this interview on fatherpreneurship.com. I want to say thank you for your most valuable commodity on earth, which is your time, because once you give it away, you'll never get it back. Yeah, God bless you. See you in the next episode of on fatherpreneurship.com with these purpose-driven content and the Speak Live series. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you.